Hello and welcome to the Outcomes Over Hours show. I'm Tina Patterson and I'm really delighted with who I have as my special guest today. I have here Nick Kohler, and he has deep expertise when it comes to digital transformation. And this is across quite a few different sectors such as education, travel and media. His current role, he is the CEO of RMIT Online, and they are being pioneers when it comes to the future of work and thinking about digital learning and how it can look really, really different. RMIT Online partners with some of the biggest and the best companies across the world, companies such as Adobe, Accenture, Salesforce and Slack. And I love how Nick thinks differently. He has that transformation mindset, which I love, and thinks differently about what leadership can look like, as well as what the future of work looks like. So Nick, welcome to the Outcomes Over Hours show.
Thanks a lot for that, Tina. I'm really looking forward to the conversation, and thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Well, we spoke before we started recording about how things have changed quite a lot from pre-pandemic to post-pandemic. And I'd love if you could share a little bit about your own leadership journey and particularly your leadership style and how it might have changed over the course of your career.
Yeah, it's a good question. I suppose when I started working, it was very much in an industrial world. So, it's pretty much, management was, through the line, down the line. Big companies operated in fiefdoms, and you had everything to do, and you basically just had to do your job. And leadership in that context was, somewhat easy in that you're given very clear instructions of what to do, but also somewhat unrewarding in that you didn't allow for any creativity. And in terms of communication styles, very much, we'll tell you what you can say as opposed to anything else. But as we moved into digital, obviously it was a very, very different market, much more of a kind of network leadership style. So having to lead through influence, and lead teams of people who, incredibly smart, incredibly creative, and required a very different approach. And, that approach really was clarity. Just make sure we're very clear about what the expectations are, what you have to get done. I've hired you to do a job. I'm not going to do your job, but I'm going to ask a lot of questions along the way, and hopefully you can make better decisions and we can get better together. And from a communication style, I evolved into a much more open style of communication, which was literally, look, you can tell your people anything. I'll tell you when you can't. Like there might be one or two things we probably can't for confidentiality, but be open and transparent and let people know exactly what's going on. Because if they don't know what's going on, they don't know how they can fix it.
Keep going.
Yeah, which that really was important for us from a sort of digital perspective. And then, we talked before, I'm, purpose-led leader, and I do, am attracted to businesses and areas that have a strong purpose. And I think the other piece really around leadership style was aligning people around, that purpose. Let's just be really clear who we work for here. You don't work for me. You're working for either the student that you're going to change their life, or the reader who's reading the newspaper, or the family who's booking a holiday house and stays. They're the people you work for. So from a customer-centric point of view, just make sure every decision's done through the eyes of the customer. And I'm happy for you to ask for forgiveness rather than permission, as long as you're aligning on those goals. Now, I think a little bit out of the pre and post pandemic world. And one of the things I've always believed in is being, work's what you do, not where you go. And I've had incredible success with, very flexible teams, allowed people to work the way they want to work. And I think as a result of that, got much more diverse sort of management teams and styles. And, leading into the pandemic, I think that sort of flexible approach, really helped in terms of, I was actually, I wasn't as a leader phased by not, having a line of sight on somebody. As far as I was concerned, as long as they could do the job or were doing the job and were effective, I didn't need to see them unless they really wanted to see me. So I think that helped. But I think during the pandemic, my leadership style had to change. As I mentioned, I was working in travel at the time in cruise, and this was really about an existential crisis for that industry. So, and people were very uncertain. So, the style was, I won't say directive, but probably more directed. So working with the team, clearing away ambiguity, and ensuring that they're very clear decisions. And then once again, just making sure we over communicated. Try to keep in touch with a lot of people. I think one-on-one, it's very easy just to see people in sort of group Zoom meetings over that time. But trying to keep the one-on-ones, and I think that's probably an error I'd reflect back on and say, probably could have done more of. But as a style, I think that was pretty important in terms of trying to create that connection. And coming out of it, I suppose once again, there's not. I wouldn't say my leadership style has changed or needed to evolve. The new world of work is about being flexible. That's just what employees want, and it's up to us to provide the best environment for them to do that work or to drive those outcomes. Now, if that environment's in the office, great. If that environment's at home, fantastic. If that environment's on the beach, knock your socks off. But I think it's still behaving on sort of leaders to make sure you're driving clarity, consistency, clearing roadblocks, and continually checking in and asking the question. It's that question that's not asked that I think is the most dangerous question.
Oh my gosh, there is so much gold in there, Nick, that you have shared. I just want to pick up on a couple of things. I love what you said also of, it might be in the office, it might be from home, it might be on the beach. And a lot of people use the term, it's either office or work from home. I much prefer the term work from anywhere because to your point, well, it might be actually somewhere else. But I think that piece of going, empower your people to be able to work out. We know there is sometimes where we're better together when we are in an office for certain tasks. What are the types of things that you see where the office is, it is really great for your team to be together in person?
Yeah, look, I think that's right. And touch on that. Yeah, there isn't a certain magic that happens when people get together in the same room and collaborate. You don't need to sprinkle that magic on everything, but I think certain things. So what we do at RMIT Online is we have connection sprints once every quarter. So we require people to come in once a quarter for a couple of days at least. Generally, people are in the office 2 or 3 days a week as well, because that's what's worked for them. So when we get them in, we think pretty hard about, okay, what magic do we want to create here? And that magic will be around either connections with people or team building. The last one we actually ran a hackathon around artificial intelligence.
Amazing.
So what we did was we thought the one thing that's sort of missing is how does everybody lean into the same problem and work out what it means for our business, and how do we get good ideas, and then at the same time, how do we also get them to learn about that technology?
I love that.
Yeah, so they're probably two things I think when I think back to what's the most productive time I've had at work in my career, it actually has been sitting in a room going, shit, that's a really big problem. And I've got some smart people around me, and we can just riff off each other. And that's the magic that I think is best done in person. Yeah,
I love that. And thinking about in a hybrid environment, what's the anchor points that we want to have as a team is really great. And you and I were chatting before we started recording how I've been smashed at the moment work-wise because it is the end of the quarter. And that's what a lot of my clients do. They say, okay, we want everyone in near the end of the quarter to reflect on the quarter that's been, think about the quarter coming up, and also have some team building, connection, capability development in there as well. So it's something that a lot of successful leaders do. I love the 2 other points that you mentioned that I think are really just worth highlighting. You mentioned about diversity and how your leadership style enables that diversity, not only of thought, but of the type of people coming in. Is there anything else from a diversity standpoint that you're thinking about right now in how you lead?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've always been conscious of diversity of opinion, and and where that opinion comes from. For me, it's about having a pretty conscious view of that in terms of mine. So make sure I don't have any sort of unconscious biases around bringing people in. And what I think about that in terms of the leadership style, while it can be tough, flattening the hierarchy, for want of a better term, to make sure you've got a diverse group of people lined up at a problem, irrespective of where they sit in the organisation. That's something, I do try to lean into quite a lot as a leader. Make sure it's a safe environment for everybody, because sometimes you'll have, 3 different kind of people from 3 different types of structures in that room, and sort of make sure that, it's a conversation that everyone can have. Yeah. So I think it's a couple of things. One, just thinking pretty hard about the problem, and then what's the diversity of opinion I need? Make sure we do have that diversity of opinion, but most importantly, and there's a bit I'm just continually work on, is how do you make sure you facilitate a conversation that is grounded in that diversity, so every voice is heard, every voice is relevant.
Yeah.
So they're the things that I sort of really focus on in terms of that.
Yeah, beautiful. The other point that you made, which I absolutely loved, was the focus on the customer. And I've seen quite a few companies where they have just got into this busy mentality, and that good old saying of doing business with themselves. And I love the way that you phrase it of, your team don't work for you. They actually work for, be it the student who's learning through RMIT Online, or whoever it might be, who the end customers are. I think that it just lifts up, doesn't it, and brings it back to the purpose. So thank you for
absolutely.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I recalled somebody I was working with, and she was leaving, and we had an event for her, and we had sort of customers there, etc. And she quite rightly sat up and said, you guys are the best people. Quite frankly, I could not have put my kids through school without you. You as customers. I'm very clear you have helped me. Which is kind of a really interesting sort of take on it, and very humble approach. But absolutely.
I love that. I know you think a lot about the future of work, and, transformation is in your blood. If you think about, for people listening, what are the couple of leadership skills that you think that leaders need to amplify as we're thinking about this future of work for the next couple of decades? What skills or competencies should leaders really be focusing on right now?
Look, I think learning as a competency or skill, or you call it curiosity, but for a lot of leaders, they've probably got to where they have, maybe not have studied for a while, or maybe not have needed to learn, or not do anything structured. But I think that for me, for a leader in the future, really thinking about how to remain curious, how to build a learning culture, how to learn myself, is going to be really important, because it's, I'm sure a lot of futurists will tell us what the options are in the future, but I'm pretty sure it'll be, many options, and going incredibly quickly. So that nimbleness and agility, I think, is, a really important trait. And, also the just continuing to ask questions. So I think that's going to be a really important skill. I do think there is, leaders will probably have to think more about that connection skill, and those, what questions you actually are asking, because in a hybrid world, it's pretty easy to get, sort of walk past somebody in the office and say, "G'day, how's it going? We'll talk about the cricket. Wasn't it great last night, the women's Ashes," and all that sort of stuff. But, very hard to do that on, something like Zoom or Teams. So I think, the other skill is, how do you build kind of interpersonal skills when you're not in the same place? Interpersonal skills in themselves for leaders are fundamentally important, but it is a very, very different dimension. And look, I'm always going to say that, we know that the world of work in the future is going to be more technically enabled than it was in the past. So, that being able to develop your skills in technology, and what's the best term? I want to say skills, but it's probably, for a lot of leaders, it's probably just make sure there's an absence of fear. Don't get scared about the technology for a lot of leaders, and it's there to help. But I think just really understanding how technology can help you work, and then enabling that for your team.
Oh, fantastic. I love that. In my book, Effective Remote Teams, I asked executives just that one question I asked you, what are the 2 to 3 skills? And it was interesting how many people said different phrase, but digital dexterity of, you can't have it of expecting someone's going to print out a PowerPoint and put it in front of you each time that you're going to be in a meeting. And so how do you learn, as you said, to be agile, to be nimble and to not be scared of the technology? I love that, Mark.
Yeah, I'm going to steal digital dexterity as well. I like that.
Yeah, it's a great one, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Nick, what's the best, most practical advice you yourself have been given and that you use to help you to work smarter?
Yeah, I've gotten sort of a lot of advice, and I can remember pretty early on, probably sort of in my Fairfax days, and it actually was from a colleague. It was in the newspapers, and it was just love it, like just love what you do, and if you don't, then you make a different decision, because if you actually love what you do, you're going to be curious about it. You can look at ways of improving what you're doing, and you cannot help but work smarter with that.
Oh, that's so clever. I love that.
And I'll give you a free bit of advice as well on the top of that. So I just really love what you do. And the other one was, which was probably about sort of 4 years ago, someone just said, journal, just write your thoughts from the day, just get rid of that baggage from the day and work out what you can do better. And that's something I'm trying to do, and try to do quite religiously. But in terms of being more effective, there's nothing better or worse than sitting there going, oh geez, I had a shit day in terms of, sorry about that, I had a bad day in terms of outcomes.
Absolutely.
Write it down, be honest.
Talking about love it, can you share, for people who might not know much about RMIT Online, this is the chance to share. What would you want people to know about what RMIT Online does?
Well, RMIT, our mission is to really serve a community of learners who want to navigate the world of work. So what does that, unpack that? Really, it's about helping people grow their careers. And we see that as an enablement for a lot of things, whether it's going to be, I want to go to the next step, because if I go to the next step, I'm going to get more money, which means I'm going to be able to get a house or serve my family better or do X or do Y. Or it could be, you know what, I just need to be better at this, because whether it's, leadership or design-centered thinking, it's just something I really am passionate about. I want to get better. Or I want to switch careers because, I want to do something. So we certainly see ourselves as a bridge to help people become better at life, and particularly their working life, and do it in a way, and the community piece is really important, but do it in a way that it's where, you can learn from each other as well as learn from our industry partners. So, our belief is that learning isn't about, the sage on the stage. There's a lot of kind of learning material there, and we've got really strong industry partners. You're going to learn as much from your peers in the class as you will from them, and really enable them to work. So that's really the crux of RMIT and what we've really focused on, and we're leaning into the future skills. Those skills which are really around digital dexterity and giving people the confidence that they can thrive in their work environment.
Oh, I love that. Helping people grow their careers. It's so inspiring. Fantastic. Well, Nick, before we close, I would love to ask you some rapid fire questions. Are you up for it?
Sure. I'm up for it. Yep, not a problem.
Excellent.
The answers might not be rapid fire, but we'll see.
I'll see how we go.
Yeah. Okay,
so what is the best purchase you've made for under about $100 over the last couple of years?
Alcohol aside, I would say it's probably, I keep the quote, it's a little USB hub. Which, because they've switched over now to USB-C, and everything else I've got is the kind of the old USB port, USB-A port. So that, quite frankly, is the most useful thing I've got. It's the thing I pull out every day and use. It's pretty boring, but fun.
Brilliant, brilliant. And what about when it comes to books? What's the book that you've either recommended or gifted the most to others?
Oh, the one I have, which is nothing to the work. It's a trilogy called GERT, The Unauthorised Biography of Australia. And if
Okay.
you get a chance to read it, it's actually very, very funny. It's the first book where I've actually read all the footnotes, because the footnotes are just as funny as the book. But it's the first, and you know what? You learn a little bit about history.
Interesting. And I gather it's Gert, G-I-R-T.
G-I-R-T,
as in
yeah.
Gert by C.
Gert. No, it's just Gert, the unauthorized property. And I think there's three of them. There's three volumes. But that one's a really good one. Hey, you get to learn something and have a bit of fun along the way.
Oh, that's funny. And for those of you listening who are not Australian, in our national anthem, we have a line that we are girt by sea. So there's a word that maybe you don't use in your everyday language. And what, Nick, is the most fearless thing that you have done in recent years?
So I'll think about this in terms of probably overcoming fear. So as I said, I was in travel, and it feels a little bit naff to say it, but that first conference we had at the end of COVID, where we had 700 people in a hall, and I'm about to step into it when for the last 2 years you've been isolated, and I literally I froze. I sat there and thought, my God, this is just really different. So overcoming that was actually pretty interesting. But apart from that, I do lead a very boring life. So
well, we'll finish it off then with a question that's not boring, which is, Nick, what does outcomes over hours mean to you?
Oh, look, that to me means it's about getting the job done. Get the job done well. So get the job done so you're delivering the outcomes, irrespective of the time. It's not, work's not about time. Work is, in my view, work is about outcomes. And, if you can get the job done in half the time, that's fine. You're probably going to be bored and you're probably going to have to move off to do something else. But, job's not about time. It's about actually getting things done for your customers.
Oh, I love that so much. Well, Nick, thank you so much for being with me here on the Outcomes Over Hours show.
No dramas. Thank you, Tina. Cheers.